about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
We're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So if you lost your job today, you got the call today that, sorry, you're laid off. What's your plan? What's plan B? You know, I have been planning now for a year or two that I'll get a call saying, sorry, you're done. Either it's companies using AI. We can make a better radio show, or we could make a better, we could do telemedicine without all these doctors. We could do AI. And, you know, I don't have a good plan B. I've been looking. I've been preparing. I always need to have plan B. What's my backup? I have an idea of what I'm going to do as a backup. But do I really have no, the backup is nowhere near as good as what I'm doing right now. And so then I don't put that extra effort into it. And so it's interesting because with this jobs report, and we knew this would happen. You get seasonal hiring, right? November, December, people need all hands on deck. And then after the Christmas season and all the winter season, you know, starts to wind down, and, you know, companies are like, well, here's, you know, after Christmas sales and, you know, President's Day sales and after Super Bowl, you know, we start to see companies take a look and go, okay, we got to save money. And so today, the Labor Department reported that, you know, employers unexpectedly cut 92,000 jobs. Unexpectedly. To me, this is something that always seems to happen. But it was a significant drop from January, where for me, this was surprising. 130,000 jobs were added in January. So seeing that the job growth, you know, has changed, and jobs are, you know, I think people are preparing. They're bunkering down. We don't know what's going to happen with this war, which had to happen. Iran needed to be defanged, you know, but we don't know how much longer that's going to go, what it does to supply chain and oil and other issues. But unemployment rate up about 4.4%. Not a huge a huge spike, but still up. However, you know, the Dow Jones is going up and down, and people are like, oh, panicking, and like, this is all. Here's the thing. When things happen in life, whether it's cancer, whether it's a divorce, whether it's, you know, job loss, you can handle the blow harder if you're prepared for it. Now, most people don't prepare for a diagnosis of cancer. They don't prepare somebody cheated on them and then now you have to divorce. But for those individuals that, you know, I've noticed things are changing. I've noticed my body's changing. I've put off going to the doctor. You know, my spouse is really not seeming to be engaged with me that much more. You know, the boss keeps having us train AI, and we're supposed to work with AI. You know, you deal with the blow better. I know there's a lot of discussions with car accidents. Do you do better medically from a car accident if you're expecting it and you tense up, or if you lie floppy and you let your body, you know, go with the motion? And I know there's been some controversy over, no, lay floppy. You know, I mean, for me, I'd like to brace and prepare. Not that there's that much you could do if somebody's coming onto you head on. But for most of life, if you have that plan B, you're good. Now, some people say, well, I have plan B, I have life insurance. And I have plan B. I know I have the unemployment website on my laptop, so I could very easily click that. Okay, well, that's nice. You know, but is that really a plan B? Because what I'm seeing happen, and it's common, and it's natural when this happens, is when the reality sets in that you could be in trouble, then you start to panic. You don't think very clearly. You make decisions that might not necessarily, you know, shall we say, be the best. So let's say, for example, you have a family like mine where everybody seems to get either colon cancer or heart disease, and the men don't live past 62, 63. Maybe if colon cancer is a biggie, and I scream, get your screens, or no, okay, where am I going to go? Who am I going to call? If I am told that X, Y, and Z is happening, let me research where I want to go. Let me research our health insurance. How many of you have new health insurance and you have absolutely no idea what pharmacy to use, what urgent care you could use, what hospital you could use? The majority of people, they got their health insurance card, but if there's an emergency, they're going to be like, well, I'll go anywhere. Well, that happened with my mom. My mom had an issue, so I took her to the nearest emergency room. Her insurance didn't cover that nearest emergency room. And I'm like, well, it would have helped if one of us, pre-researched that before, but nobody does that in the midst of a crisis. So my recommendation to you all, and I know this isn't the most happy sort of segment to open with, but it's something that's common sense. Think about what could floor you and what could just, shock you and kind of knock you off your balance. And then have your plan for that. Talk to family members about what to do in case there is a medical issue. Now, this is the hospital I need to go to. This is the doctor I want you to call. Here's the will. Here is the advanced directives. This way, there's no panic. I mean, there will be some panic, but you're not spending time panicking about the other things. When my dad died, my family got mad that I wasn't on the phone with them for hours providing comfort. Well, the reason why I wasn't is because apparently there was absolutely no money, or I was told there was no money, that I was going to have to pay for everything. I had to transfer his body to Las Vegas. I had to organize a funeral, find clergy, and do all that. No, now for me, I was okay with it because I got to keep busy. But I had family members upset that I wasn't there for moral support. No, you're not going to get that from me. Nobody planned. Everything got dumped on me. I have to deal with it. It was chaos. But we got it done. And I did it, to them, showing no chaos. But for me, I was like, gosh. I mean, and I even still worked. I mean, I had things to do. And I got things done. But I wouldn't recommend that for everybody. So if you're watching the job support and you keep hearing, oh my gosh, I might lose my job, come up with your plan B, even if it is, okay, well, here's the unemployment website. But make sure you talk to the family, come up with something so when it does happen, you're like, you know what? I'm not shocked. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
You'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Dahlia. As many of you know, I lost another colleague to suicide. And tragically, tens of thousands of Americans, including hundreds of physicians, take their lives each year. Why is suicide so common? Why doctors? Even medical students have alarming suicide rates. Nurse burnout is at an all-time high. Maybe it's the monstrous workloads we face every day. Maybe it's because of burnout, malpractice suits, online reviews. Medicine has changed so rapidly that it's almost unrecognizable to those of us who entered this field and wanted to take it by storm. But there's not a lot of resources out there for healthcare providers who deny that they are struggling or at risk. So my book, The Depressed Doctor, aims to change that for both the physician and medical student and anyone else who is struggling. Find The Depressed Doctor on Amazon or at drdahlia.com. And if you are currently struggling, call or text 988, the National Suicide Prevention and Crisis Hotline. Don't wait. The silence is killing us.
Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So it was one of the very, very rare moments where I saw both Republicans and Democrats kind of, shall we say, rejoice in the changing of the guard at the DHS, where Kristi Noem had, and I don't have a problem with it personally, but there was some drama surrounding her appointment and her work at the DHS. And when she was ousted for Senator Mullen, who is from Oklahoma, to take over, you saw Republicans and Democrats pretty happy with that. And I know some people had asked, they go, why are Republicans happy with that? Aren't they mad? Didn't they like her? A lot of people liked her, but there were some concerns that I think, kind of were apparent. And, she might do a wonderful job, but, when it comes to the border, and as I've said this, time and time again, as with Minneapolis and all that, if I was running the Department of Homeland Security, and I'm not, and I'm by no means qualified for that, but I would have ensured that there were, barriers and barricades so that first responders or police or firefighters or whomever, FBI agents, ICE agents, whatever, where there was a safe barrier because, between protesters and the people who are on the field doing the work. I understand protesters didn't want to stay in one area and peacefully assemble. I understand that some of them wanted to get into the face, but I think that could have been handled better, so there wouldn't have been any skirmishes. There wouldn't have been, any deaths, as we saw with 2 Americans. The interactions with armed officers, really, that should have been prevented by Minneapolis. The mayor is responsible for not ensuring that the protests were in one area and operations could handle in another area, but they didn't. And unfortunately, bad things happened. And I don't want to ever see that happen again. But that's not, in addition to that, was that really Kristi Noem's fault? Was that a concern that a lot of people had? Was, I understand that when you're in the media, you need to get your hair done. You need to put makeup on. I get that. I can't stand having to, can't be wearing my pajamas. I got to, put a bra on, get dressed. And I get that. But, she always seemed like she was makeup ready. And what rubs people a little wrong about that is if you are, okay, I got to, get this job done. Like when Kamala Harris was appointed border czar. All right. Ditch the purse, roll up your sleeves, strap on the fanny pack, get yourself down to the border and get to work. And the idea of, well, I got to be poised and I got to be this and I got to have, the hair and all that. And it just kind of, do you always have to be made up? Do you always have to have the makeup on? Do you always, what's your priority? That's a big issue that patients had with doctors. I remember it was years ago where they started to say, doctors maybe shouldn't be wearing scrubs, but they should be wearing formal attire and dress up, in front of the patients and, ladies with their skirts and their heels. I couldn't do medicine in skirts and heels. If I was worried about hurting $100 or $200 pantsuit, no, you have something to show me on your foot. Let me put your foot on my leg and then let me look at your foot. Let me get in there. All my work and, it was, you just got in there. And so the idea of, well, if you're in the office, you need to dress up. I couldn't stand that. How am I supposed to perform a pap smear when I'm so worried about the way my knees are? And do I have to have my knee? I need to sit comfortably and work. That's just what you do. And so, it even if that was just her natural posture and she just always, makeups and all that, it starts to make people wonder, wait, what is your focus? Is your focus to get into work or is your focus being media ready? And then this whole ad thing. So we're watching these ads, and I'm not saying this is why, there might be more to it, but there's these ads where you see her riding horses. And again, you see her on a horse and you see her, I'm looking at this. I'm like, if you're trying to send a message that legal immigrants have a pathway, and if you take cuts like at the DMV, All right, you're going to have to go to the back of the line. I think there's a cheaper, less artistic way to do that. Say, look, for those of you who took cuts, hey, that's not fair to the legal immigrants who are coming here from Cuba and Nicaragua and Mexico and Venezuela and all that. You know, they're doing it right. You're not going to take cuts. You got to go to the back of the line. And as Mexico, Canada, and everybody else deports, if you're here illegally, there, you know, but we do offer you a plane ticket, money, etc. You know, there's a pathway. So contact us. There's a pathway to make this happen, and then you can reapply. That didn't necessarily have to be done, you know, with all the pomp and circumstance and you know, so it was a little bit of a, is this more about her than the cause? And so when people found out that, you know, it was like, I think, what, a $200 million ad campaign, and that there was some relationships between, the company. So what I guess ProPublica had said is that the company running the Mount Rushmore shoot, because it was shot at Mount Rushmore, it's called the Strategy Group, and that the main recipient of the money that was spent on the commercial, the $220 million for the ad, I guess, is a company in Delaware. And I don't think it's owned by Biden or anything like that. But the company CEO was married to chief spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin. Now, Tricia McLaughlin did a great job as a spokesperson, but if you notice, about a week or two left, she resigned. So I knew something was up. And maybe it's all coincidence, but her husband owns the ad company. Maybe my guess is people are like, wait a second, this looks like we're using taxpayer money for relationships or friends. And then, of course, people are still kind of confused about her top advisor, Corey Lewandowski. And I don't like to get into rumors. I don't know if she has a personal, you know, extramarital relationship. I don't care about that. I don't want to get involved with that, but that was a concern. So, you know, we're being told by Senator Kennedy that when, you know, during the hearing, she was asked about that ad that featured her and if Trump was fully aware and sanctioned that sort of money. And she starts to kind of bypass the question. And then they really add and go, did Trump know? And she goes, yeah, he knew. I hear Trump got mad at that. And then, she was moved. Now, she wasn't fired completely. Apparently, there's this new job that she is now going to be a part of. It is called the Shield of the Americas. And so people have asked, what is this? So she's going to be a special envoy to this. And I guess Trump is gathering the leaders of 11 Latin American countries for a Shield summit. It's going to happen this Saturday in Florida. He's going to be using Kristi Noem for that. And I guess it's part of his vision for U.S. national security and put more emphasis, I guess, on the Western Hemisphere and work with Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Paraguay, Trinidad, and Tobago. They're all coming. And I guess there's the summit. But in the meantime, Senator Mark Wade Mullen is going to be running DHS. As I've said before, the immigration issue and what happened with the border does not have to be as chaotic. I know it was, we saw the pictures and, even Alejandro Mayorkas said there's people coming in with medical issues. There's 2 every 5 of these immigrants have a medical issue. And, that concerned people as it pertained to TB, as it pertained to, hepatitis, as it pertained to and so, yes, the border has to be secure. I think bipartisanly, we all agree with that. What people don't agree on is, well, what do we do with individuals who got through? What do you do with illegal immigrants? Do we do what Canada does? Do we do what Mexico does and deport them? Do we give them a mulligan? Do we give them amnesty? And I think the majority of people say, look, if I'm at the DMV and somebody takes cuts, okay, no, you can't take cuts because I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing in line. That person has to go to the back of the line. And if that person doesn't want to go to the back of the line, then they have to leave the DMV because, you've been waiting and you've been, and so I think we need to really secure and allow to flourish our legal immigration process. And our legal immigration process, it's not perfect, but it has allowed millions of people to become Americans. And we can't let that process lose its integrity. Now, whether Kristi Noem did a great job with that or not, I don't know. But when you have a lot of this other stuff going on, it does make people scratch their heads. I do not want to see an ad with Mount Rushmore and bison. It's beautiful, but I'm like, that's not, I mean, what's your message? I mean, like, we're going to come for you. We're going to, I think the messaging is, hey, guys, and it could be very, very, succinct, and it doesn't have to you don't have to spend that much money. Say, look, if you're here legally, great, welcome. If you're not, you got to get to the back of the line. We're going to offer you money to go home and then come back and start over at the front of at the back of the line. I mean, there's easier messaging that's a lot cheaper. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Back at the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So you're seeing a lot of back and forth on, well, is Kamala Harris going to run? Is Kamala Harris in the lead? Is she going to be running again for president? And then you hear people say, no. She won't run for president, because of men. Men don't want a woman president. And this is the real reason. All right. So I don't know if you've been kind of watching what's happening with, Iran and many of these women who have been raped, brutally attacked. We're being told that in prisons, a virgin women prisoner may be raped so that she is damned to never go to heaven or hell. I mean, these are things that happen to them. There was a woman who I guess was shot in the eye, an Iranian woman who was shot in the eye, still recovering. And you hear these articles where they're mad at Kamala Harris because you would think, they're thinking, look, we women are being oppressed, we're being raped, we're being attacked, we don't have freedoms. You'd think if anybody would be on our side, it would be, American women who get to have freedoms. Yes, we are raped and attacked and things like that, but whoa, in America, it's so much better, so much safer. So they're looking at Kamala Harris and they're mad that she is, being anti, what this administration is doing with Iran, and Iranian women are like, wait a second, I thought other women are supposed to have her backs. And so, I'm reading all this. And I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, but it's really hard to put into a single reason as to why women struggle to become president. And I think if I could somehow word it properly, which, always is difficult because there's always critics and people upset, with what you say. But I think it's because women really struggle to get the women vote. And it's not just the women vote, but I think women struggle with the role they have to be there for women. Now, men don't want somebody who's just focused on one part of the country. I mean, whoever's going to be president needs to be there for everybody. But women are pretty particular about, who is going to represent them. And also there's a lot of pressure on the first woman president. Because if that first woman president screws up, it's going to be a long time until another woman gets elected because people are going to compare them to that woman. And so, what are women thinking? Well, I can't speak for all women, but what you're seeing online is, okay, wait a second. Why aren't women, speaking out about what's happening to Iranian women? What about, these girls that are trying to compete in sports and now they have to compete with a biological male? Or what about women who, want to have that safety and that safe space in a bathroom, but they're with a biological male? And again, I have nothing against transgender individuals, but you would think women would be a little bit more united on, all right, girls get their space. We want our space. I don't have a problem changing with some men. I love men, but I can't speak for everybody. I can't speak for all women. And we're supporting these women in sports. These women are able to do amazing things. And then now they have to lose out to somebody who, isn't necessarily XX. And so I think a lot of women are looking at that as, well, wait a second here. Are you really for women or are you not? If people expect that the woman president is going to help, I guess, push forward with progress, what women are able to do. Now, women have achieved amazing progress. Are we still getting paid less in some areas? Yes. Are we having, still attacks and rapes and so there has to be a lot more to that. But when you saw that transgender female who had transitioned to a boy, remember she was honored at the State of the Union, where the school counselors transitioned her without her parents knowing. When her parents spoke out about it, they lost custody of the child. They put this girl who had transitioned temporarily to a boy in a boys' facility, I guess some sort of a boys' boarding school, and she got raped and assaulted miserably and frequently. And she couldn't get out. And she couldn't, because they, the powers that be were trying to protect her from her parents. And her parents couldn't protect her from getting raped because she was transitioning to a boy and they put her in a boy facility. And so, when women go, okay, look, women that, speak out, this is pretty common sense. And they see they don't. Many people are like, okay, well, wait a second. Then what is who are you representing? Now, being a woman, if I, was asked to run, and I have been asked to run for office, I don't think of representing women alone. I think of how am I going to represent whoever wants me in office. So if Nevadans want me to run for office, I'm there to represent Nevadans. All right. Whether you're male, female, transgender, whoever, I am here to represent Nevadans. But for a female to win, if women don't feel like you have their back, that's going to be an issue. When women are in trouble, do they run to a woman or do they run to a man? We run to anybody, but I got to tell you, when I have had issues and I've been in trouble, or needed help, I've run to men. And I think the reason why is because I feel the men could help me more. And, and in a figurative sense, when it's with work or career, yeah, there's been some real jerk men out there to me. But most of my success was because a man stepped in and helped. Didn't get that from the ladies. Ladies kind of kept to themselves. It kind of did, and I'm not saying that as a generalization. But here you are, you're a woman thinking, okay, men are going to vote for me. And if you have good policy, and you have common sense, and you are going to represent them in that state or country, yeah, you'll get a man's vote. But if women are already like, I don't know if men are going to vote for me, well, I got to get the women to vote for me. And the women are like, really? Iranian women getting raped, and you're not, and you're not rejoicing with them that the Ayatollah is gone and that Iran is getting defanged. You lose people. Now, somebody could say, yeah, but women are supposed to be about the anti-war. We're anti-war. Okay, listen, women don't like war. Nobody wants to see anybody lose their sons or daughters. I get that. I get that. But how are we stereotyping women? It's not just all about the family and the lovey-dovey women are just as good on foreign policy. They're just as good on the economy. There's just as a woman could do anything, mentally a man can do. And so, don't be stereotyping. Well, we need a woman because we really, really need pro-abortion representation in America. Don't be stereotyping women as that. I mean, women are very motherly. They love babies and they want to preserve fetal lives also. I think, the average woman wants to see fewer women struggle with the decision to have to abort a child and terminate a pregnancy. But that's not what's going to launch somebody to presidency. What's going to launch somebody to presidency is, are you going to represent us or are you going to hurt us? Are you going to be making decisions that is going to be anti-man or anti-woman? Now, men get that same sort of, questions posed to them, but they do have a much easier time if women feel that they're going to represent them more than women. So it's a little tricky, and I know this isn't going to be the most popular segment, but for any of you women who are thinking about running for office, and I know it's hard, but the first group of people you are supposed to think about, not yourself, it's who are you representing? What does that California district need? What does that need? And, if you're noticing you're failing with women, you might want to talk to them and see what exactly it is that they don't feel you're representing them with. The 1-877-Doc-Dolly, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles, along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
And we're back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOCDALI. So when I see a seal, I'm like, oh my gosh, how cute. I just want to pet the seal. I want to tickle it under its chin and rub its little nose. Oh, no, don't do it. Don't do it. And you guys are going to be hearing this condition. We've known about it for a while, but only now they're talking about it in the media, called seal finger. Have any of you guys ever had seal finger? Not fun. In the fall of 2024, there was a 29-year-old Alaskan hunter that showed up at an urgent care in Anchorage with a swollen, infected finger. Doctor's like, all right, well, you got an infected finger. Let's give you some topical and oral antibiotics. Okay. Well, days later, he ends up in the hospital with fever and tachycardia, which is a high heart rate. This is being reported by yahoo.com. So they had to go into surgery to clean out the infection and to see what's going on. They, on exploratory surgery, found severe damage to his finger tendon, as well as septic arthritis. The infection went into the joint. Now, once the fever was reduced, the lab cultures came back clear. He got to go home, again, still with antibiotics. But he didn't still get better. According to the Alaska Department of Health, he has improved, but he was diagnosed with a severe case of seal finger. Now, they say initially he was skinning a brown bear, I guess, and the 29-year-old hunter, I guess, from what we understand, was skinning a brown bear, and his pain and swelling didn't get better, returns to the hospital 40 days after he was discharged, and then on further exam revealed that while cultures of the infection were negative, he now had bone and cartilage degradation. When they finally were able to DNA sequence what he was exposed to, it was called Mycoplasma phosphomorsis. And phosphomorsis is a pathogen that we've known about, won't necessarily show up in cultures. If your lab isn't looking for phosphomorsis, it won't show up. Doesn't respond to a lot of antibiotics. The Alaska Department of Health states that the bacteria requires specific treatment. Doxycycline, which is a very common antibiotic we use for Lyme disease and we use for a variety of conditions, is sometimes prescribed. And they've used that in suspected cases of seal finger among native seal hunters in rural Alaska. Now, this was first identified in an Alaskan native seal hunter back in 2015, but even though it was identified then, it wasn't necessarily something that we didn't know, but we've known about it before. But this was the first case associated with a brown bear. So even though they're calling it seal finger, it's a very similar pathogen, whether you're bit by a brown bear or a seal. So Dr. Skip Scott, a Fairbanks resident taxidermist, he contracted the infection in the early 60s. He said they've known about seal finger for a long time. Back when anyone would hunt seals, I just barely nicked my left index finger while skinning a seal on Afghanak Island. The tip of my knife punctured the pad at the tip of my finger. I bled a little, washed it out as best as I could, continued with the hunting trip. And then 8 days later, the swelling was out of control. Looked like a catcher's mitt. He went to the hospital. They gave him a lot of antibiotics. It didn't help. And so they, I guess, were offered him amputation. They were going to, in the 1960s, amputate his hand. Luckily, the orthopedic surgeon at the time could avoid the amputation by removing the necrotic tendon and tissue and replacing it with another piece of tendon in his arm. They said they literally scraped everything out of my finger and palm except the skin and bones. It took nearly 2 years and multiple surgeries, and he was able to survive. So this is the first known case of seal finger associated with bears. But the reason why I'm telling you guys, it's not because, I think you guys are going to be, trying to tickle and pet a bear or a seal. But it's, these animal bites are very, very dangerous. And these animal scratches. And I know some of you have called me very upset that your telemedicine company won't give you antibiotics if your dog bites you or scratches you. Apparently, any animal bite or scratch has to be evaluated in person because they need to clean it out. They need to get some data as pertains to rabies. They want to document it and keep an eye on you to make sure in case the rabies vaccine didn't take, you don't get exposed to rabies. And so there's a lot more to it. And plus, they want to make sure that you heal up. A puncture wound infections from an animal bite or a knife or whatever are a lot more tricky than a scrape, because what happens is when you puncture and it goes into the deeper layers, your body immediately tries to close up anything that got cut. So here you have something that, it's like falling into a well, and then your body tries to close up the well. Well, if nobody really cleans out what landed in the bottom of the well, that sucker festers. And then it burrows to the side and it just, sorry for the metaphor, but that's the only metaphor I can think of right now. And so when somebody sustains a puncture wound, I mean, it's not just, well, here's some antibiotics. We want to clean it out really good, and we want to watch you. Now, animals, whether it's our cats or dogs, a seal, a bear, their bacteria in their mouth is different. Even though human bites can be very dangerous and cause a lot of infection and also give you HIV and hepatitis and things like that. But these animals, they're pretty dirty. I mean, I see what my dogs do. They sniff each other's butts. They lick themselves. They eat the cat's poo-poo. I don't want any of that in any of my wounds. And so, they're saying that these bears, they eat salmon. They eat, when they put the dirty water in their mouth to get food, they're not really thinking about, I got to brush my teeth. They have a much different immunity. And so they feed up on, and they'll even eat carcasses of seals, sea lions. You think they'll be like, well, the animal's been dead. They won't touch rotten food, not always. And so if there's anything that you use, and we have hunters in the family and all that, and I tell them, I go, you cut yourself, don't just stick Neosporin on it and say you're good. Okay, you need to let me know. You also want to make sure your tetanus is up to date. But many people don't see a doctor. They don't go to urgent care. They're like, I could do this at home. And I get it. It's really nice to be able to do things at home. But I am seeing wounds where people try to super glue it themselves, and then it gets worse. An infection that doesn't get addressed properly requires surgery. And it could also require amputation. Don't mess around. Now, I get this comment all the time. People say, but the urgent care won't do anything. The urgent care won't do anything. Okay, what to do if you feel the doctor or the urgent care won't do anything? And you're not always wrong. I've heard where doctors like, I don't want to touch this. Like, I don't. Then what you need to do is you need to say, look, this is what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about this. This is what I'm concerned that I was exposed to. What needs to be done? And then they might say, well, we're going to irrigate it. We're going to start you on antibiotics. But if at all it doesn't seem to be improving within the next 24, 48 hours, you need to go to the ER. But I'm going to tell you that also. If something does not look like it's improving or getting better, remember there was that Georgia teenager who was ziplining and lacerated her leg. They cleaned it out really good, stitched it up, and said, you don't need stitches. Any puncture wound, you've got to get, or you don't need antibiotics, they said. Well, apparently she had a lot of pain, but she didn't have redness because the infection was so deep. And she kept coming back to the ER, and they're like, it's not red, you're good. You're just having pain from the fall. But they should have given her an antibiotic. By the time one doctor goes, you know what? I wonder if you're getting necrotizing fasciitis, where it's an infection along the superhighway of the fascia that lines the muscles way deep below the skin. By the time they put her on antibiotics, it was too late. She goes into septic shock and ends up having multiple amputations. Pain is a sign of infection. You might not see the redness. You might not see the swelling. So definitely get it checked out. And if you don't think the doctor's going to do anything, go to a different doctor or medical provider. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.